The report that caused such a ruckus in the first place had to do with the war in Iraq.
Wrong track by over-militarizing the struggle.
If fighters fail there or think they failed, the report says that will hurt the movement.
The Iraq we see on the media is one side of the story, and I wanted to get a different side of the story, and I wanted to make a documentary about a different side of the story. And I found that opportunity through traveling to the Middle East with Tim Comer. Tim has worked in printing and publishing his entire life. He's worked as a missionary all over the world, and he has bought and sold printing presses all over the world.
In 2001, I was contacted by a Christian organization that has a ministry to the Kurds in the north of Iraq, and they'd asked if I could help locate a printing press that they could use to print scriptures and Bible portions and other Christian literature for the Kurdish church in that area. I located a very nice Heidelberg two-color press, along with a paper cutter and a folder and 3-knife trimmer and bookbinding machines. And we loaded it up in a shipping container, shipped it to Turkey, where it was going across the border, and they were going to set up their printing press in northern Iraq. And I thought that was the end of it. About a year later, the war on terror escalated to the point that America was coming in to invade, and of course Saddam was later captured, and things progressed from there. But the print shop had still not managed to get set up, and they contacted me, said the press has been sitting there this time and they still don't have it running. Is it possible that you could come over, get everything set up and operational, and train the people how to operate the equipment?
I cannot imagine anyone more qualified to go to Iraq and set up a Christian printing press.
Well, I was a little taken back by the idea of going to Iraq. I had heard all these reports on the news about the bombs exploding everywhere, people getting their heads chopped off, and I thought, well, I'll have to pray about this. And we did. My wife and I prayed about it for a while, and I felt like, you know, if this is really what God's calling me to do, then I want to be a part of it. Well, in May of 2004, we prepared for the first trip over there, and my goal, my plan was to get everything plugged in and operational in the first few days, spend the rest of the time training the people how to operate the equipment. But nothing went according to my plan. When we got there, we immediately found that the electrical power was not working properly. We needed to get a generator for the print shop. There were parts that were broken, circuit boards that were blown, and I realized in no time at all that I was going to have to come back and try to get things running. We came back in October of 2004 with my wife Sharon. She was anxious to come with me this time and see firsthand what was going on, and she helped teach English in the Christian school while I was working every day in the print shop.
This is Michelle.
What is your name?
My name is Mira.
Mira, it's a very nice name. And what is your name? Mohammed.
Tim called me in late March of 2005 and said that he was returning to Iraq and that I could go with him if I would like to shoot a documentary. And I had seen his footage from his previous trips, and I have to do this. I have to go to Iraq and shoot this film.
This particular trip, we were flying into Amman, Jordan. The original plan was to get up early the next morning and fly straight into Baghdad and on to northern Iraq. But flight was canceled at that point indefinitely.
Today is Thursday, and right now we're just trying to figure out what we're supposed to do here in Jordan.
The issue of flying to Baghdad is not really a matter of Rumsfeld being there or violence at the airport or anything like that. It's just that somehow all the airlines are now arguing over who's going to have the rights to get in and out.
I think it's too much trouble to go through Turkey. I honestly feel that we will have a flight out of here within the next 2 days.
We ended up spending about a week in Jordan, but it gave us some wonderful opportunities to do some sightseeing in the local area.
We were in the Middle East. We were seeing things that I never thought I'd see, like Petra, but it wasn't what I thought I was there for. I wanted to get into Iraq and shoot this documentary.
While we were in Amman, we also got to meet a fellow named Jody Miller, who is pastoring a church for the Iraqi refugees, and he introduced us to a number of the people who had fled from Iraq.
The area we're in is called Al-Mahatta. Al-Mahatta means the station. It's a poor area and lower rents, and thus it attracts a lot of Iraqis. They're all refugees. Generally, they have zero ability to pay even the rent.
The school was started about 10 years ago for Iraqi refugees who were in the area and were not allowed to go to public schools here in Jordan.
They have Bible class every day, and then they learn verses in English and Arabic. In their English classes and in their Arabic classes, we have them learn Bible verses.
That's great.
And we're very free to share the gospel because it is a church ministry. And so when people come, when parents send their children, they know right off the top that this is a church ministry and they're going to hear the gospel. And we've only had a few that have actually pulled their children out because of that.
It's a great ministry because the people come with nothing. They have needs, and they see needs being met by our church, and they see love and compassion, and it touches them. And we see many of them come to know Jesus as personal Savior and Lord because they've been touched in a very real way.
This is the church, and everybody's beginning to gather, so let's see what this is going to be like here shortly.
أشكرك يا رب لأنك أنت دائما تسير بوجهك أمامي يا رب. أشكرك لأجل أعمالك العظيمة في وسط كنيستك وشعبك يا رب. أنا أعطيك لك الحمد دوما وأبدا. آمين.
نشكرك آمين. سوف يقبلون هذا الشيء. بيقبلون مرات الصمت مو بسبب إنه ما يعرفون. هم أساسا يعني هو ما يعرفون عن الكفارة.
It dawned on me that all my aggravation about not being able to get into Iraq was a moot point, because I was getting the story of Iraqi people. I was just getting the story of the Iraqi people who've escaped to Jordan. Jody arranged for us to sit down with some of the Iraqi refugees so that I could get their stories on tape.
Okay, she was working for the American Army officers. Doing laundry and doing their clothes. And she was going with 2 cars of 10 people. It was on the way to Fallujah, where Saddam's hometown was. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. And they were sleeping in the vehicles on the way to their workplace when all of a sudden they were shot at. She was shot at by the terrorists who wore head coverings so they couldn't be seen. And they had been following her, so they knew their routine. And she was shot in the arm with a bullet and was wounded. And she was shot in the leg with a bullet, and then a bullet went through her forehead. So that she was shot in 3 places with bullets and was bleeding. While the Jambik Kamen, they were all Christians working with the American Army. The lady on her right was killed, and the lady on her left was killed, and the lady in front of her was also killed.
بيحكوا أنتم المسيحيين بتحبون الأمريكان لأن مثلكم مسيحيين.
And the terrorists were saying, you are Christians, you are just like the Americans, and so we're going to kill you just like them. So it's not right for you to live any longer. And the terrorists sent a letter to her house saying that because she didn't die, they were going to kill her too. So she left the next day after she got this letter from the terrorists saying that because you're still alive, we're going to kill you too. So she cannot go back now. She has this death threat pending over her.
Maggie is just such a sweet, sweet person. She is a blessing. And she's the type person that really is always wanting to help, always positive, always part of the solution.
بس بيحكوا بعدنا مش كويسين يعني مش كويسين معنا يوم يا تفجير يوم يا اضطهادات يوم يا حكي.
Every day there's explosions and kidnappings and acts of terrorism. So her Christian friends in Iraq have called her and said, "Don't return now." And the situation of the Christians is very difficult.
ما بده حرب بده يعيش بده يشتغل بس ما يخلون يشتغل. إذا اشتغل يم أمريكي بيقتلوا إذا يم يغزلة بيقتلوا أي كان واحد بيقتلوا. شلون يعيش؟
The Christians want to live, they want to be salt and light in the country, but it's hard to get jobs because if they get jobs with the Americans or cooperate with the occupying forces, then they're subject to harassment or to death threats.
Okay, so the war comes, Saddam's ousted from power, there's no government at all whatsoever, and so suddenly everything's wide open. A number of churches started up very quickly. The braver people came in really while the bullets were still flying from the shooting part of the war. So everything was great. There were Bibles went in by the thousands and thousands of Bibles, tracts. You could freely distribute tracts. I know people that spent years in prison for handing out tracts on the street. Suddenly, it's all free. A new set of problems arrived, problems from terrorists and kidnappings, bombings. Very intimidating for Christians. You imagine going to your church and thinking, what if the church is bombed today? But these are the things that confront Christians now in Iraq. The better things get in Iraq, the less happy the terrorists worldwide will be. They've lost a base of operations already as far as having free run. Two, they've lost Afghanistan and Iraq. They'd rather have confusion and chaos than stability and sanity.
I am Iraqi, from Baghdad, live in Baghdad. وكان في شغل حلو في مساعدة العوائل الفقيرة وفاميلي يعني كنا نعطيهم المواد الغذائية فود والميديسين وكل شيء. وكان في يوم 6/1 في الشهر الأول كان تم اختطافنا من قبل جماعة إرهابية في بغداد. ويعني أنت يعني الأخ جودي ميلر هو وقف الشغل في بغداد عشان إحنا يعني يطلعونا يعني ما يقتلونا يعني الإرهابيين. وهذا اللي كان صار. وبعدها تم أخذوا مصاري كمان. الأسبوع اللي قضيناه هناك كان كثير صعب. كان في ضرب، كان في إهانات يعني بالكلام علينا، وكنا كثير بصراحة خايفين يعني لأنه إحنا كنا بنشوف الناس وكيف هم هناك قدامنا ويقطعوا راسهم بيقيم راسه ويرمي هناك يعني قدام إحنا نشوفهم يعني عشان يعني إنه يفرجونا إذا إحنا مرة ثانية رجعنا اشتغلنا إذا يمسكونا هيك بيكون حالنا يعني زي هذول يقطعوا راسنا يعني.
ما تركنا يعني دائما معانا وما تركنا حتى لو كنا عند الإرهابيين ممكن احنا اول الناس بنطلع من الإرهابيين ممكن كان انقتلنا لانه كل اللي يدخل هناك ينقتل ما يطلع.
انا اطلب من كل واحد انه اللي يشوفني هو انه يصلي عشاني وعشان اهلي.
These people had left everything they had in Iraq and had escaped to Jordan and were now living as refugees in cramped overcrowded quarters in a small neighborhood of the city.
The terrorists, they have many goals. Maybe they're not all clear what they want, but they definitely want money, and they do these kidnappings. A big reason is for money. They want the money from the ransom.
هم من اختطفوني يعني هم كانوا يقولوا لي بالضبط يعني انتم كفرة، انتم قتلكم حلال علينا يعني اذا قتلناش او قتلنا اهلك.
The ones that kidnapped her were Iraqis, but the ones over them, in charge of them, were foreigners.
سوريا يعني.
Maybe from Syria.
تمول العراقيين في سبيل أن يقومون بهالعمليات الإرهابية يعني في العراق.
Many of the terrorists in Iraq came from Syria.
هم يعني كانوا أكثر شيء يعني يقولوا لي أنت كافرة يعني إذا قتلناك يعني فد شيء يعني تدخل الجنة يعني هذا فد شيء بسيط الصبر. من والدي دفع الفلوس ب7 يوم، هم اجوا قالوا لي انه ابويا ما دفع المبلغ المطلوب، بس هم يعني وعدوني انه باكر الفجر يقتلوني، ومو بس يقتلوني، يقتلون عائلتي يعني. أنا كنت بهذا اليوم يعني اصلي للرب وادعي انه ان يساعدني على هذا الموقف يعني. هم يعني من أخذوني لفوني داخل بطانية، بعدين هم ظلوا يعني ساعات طويلة يتكلمون على نفس الموضوع، أقتلها هنا. بالآخر يعني دفعوني من السيارة من يعني بوعت دار مداري يعني. شفت أنا نفسي بالبلديات، منطقة البلديات. It's my story.
To see Shema now so much better than when she first came, it really is a blessing for me. 23rd June.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Done great. To remain in Australia indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
Oh, I love it. That's great. So you'll become an Australian, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Shema got her papers to go to Australia, and we were real happy for her. And it turns out the next morning we found out that we were finally getting to go to Iraq. Well, it's Tuesday morning. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning here in Amman, Jordan. We're waiting for Samir to pick us up and take us to the airport, where we catch the air-served flight going to Baghdad and on to Erbil. Well, here comes Samir right now. We'd heard some pretty wild stories about the flight into Baghdad.
What happens is they drop normally until they got just to the bottom of the cloud layer, and then they just drop like a rock into a spiral down to the runway. A very tight turn, like you experience on a roller coaster, and you can feel your cheeks being pulled out as you're going down, and you can see yourself right over the airport, right over the terminal the whole time. You stay right over the terminal building. When I got on the ground, I thank God for our safe landing first, and I thank God that we had missed breakfast second.
The flight time to Baghdad International Airport will be 2 hours. You can request it to fasten your seatbelts and make sure your luggage is secured in preparation for takeoff. We remind you that the international regulations forbid the use of cell phones and computers during takeoff and landing. Also, please take into consideration the toilet on board is not in use.
missiles, they're heat-seeking missiles. You know, if they've got it fairly close on, a normal plane going straight, the missile will take over once it gets a lock on that heat source and go right into the engine, blow the engine off, and the plane crashes. When you're going in that tight of turn, even if it does get a lock on your engine, it can't turn as tight as the plane is turning.
It's not like a landing in the United States at all. You get right over the airport and you drop like a rock.
About 2 hours getting our passport stamped, and then back up into the air the same way and on to northern Iraq.
Some things in Iraq were exactly like I thought they'd be. They would be a little chaotic.
When we got into Erbil, the one thing I noticed this time was the construction progress was just booming. There were things going on everywhere, every block. They were even building a shopping mall.
Despite that progress, there were still a number of things in Iraq that just didn't work. I have no seatbelt latch doesn't work, and have no way of knowing how fast we're going because the speedometer doesn't work either. I guess what you don't know can or cannot kill you. I don't know. I was afraid in northern Iraq that we would be under constant threat of a terrorist attack. Terrorists would be watching us, something like that. I didn't find that to be the case at all. In northern Iraq, I found people to be really friendly and happy to see Americans out on their street and meeting them face to face. Yeah, room 114.
Here we are. We're getting ready to go see if we can figure out how to find Ashti or Sabri, and we're not sure where they are. I don't think they even know we're in town yet, so we'll see what we find out.
Our first day in northern Iraq, we found Ashti, and he took us to his house. His wife prepared this meal of stuffed vegetables, and we got to visit with him a little bit.
يعني بالنسبة للمطبعة إذا نريد نطبع كتب نطبعها أي مكان صعب إن نطبعها كتب مسيحية، لكن هذه المطبعة إنه بحرية لأنه تابعة للكنيسة ممكن نطبع الكتب الروحية بسهولة وننشرها يعني.
After lunch, we got in the print shop and I took a look around and realized that some things had changed since we were here last.
I'm not sure what these wires are here. All these wires are here
Only going to the generator?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. But it has to have something to go into the ground, because at some point, if you touch this thing and there's a short, you can get electrocuted, kill you. So, but just to go from the generator to the machine, there's no ground. It has to go in the ground. That's why they call it a ground.
Sand and dust and dirt had settled in the print shop in the 6 months since Tim's last visit, and there was hardly anything working.
All I need to do was just to get about a 4-foot cord and try this pump out. It's like, this is not the land of Walmart down here, so it's difficult to do now. Okay, we'll see.
I had to reteach the basic steps of printing to the entire crew.
Bring the plate back to the press. After we run the press, then we run the folder.
So
I thought we were ready to turn the press on and operate, but it turns out we're really not. So it's a typical day, and you know, but it'd be okay. At least they are making progress. So, you know, it's eventually they'll have it all figured out, but it's a little slow. It's not U.S. standards here.
Well, as we started to work, we realized that the electrical power had improved considerably in the city since we were there a year before, but it still goes off unannounced at any time of the day, and when it does, everyone just goes on outside, sits on the front porch, and sips their chai or their tea, and things come to a halt. And we had a brand new generator sitting up on the roof, but no one seemed to want to take the effort and time to go up and turn it on and switch over to our generator. The situation there is not at all like it is here, where we can jump in the car in 5 minutes, go to Home Depot and get whatever we need.
The plates that you buy locally are not the right size, and so they have to literally cut them down by hand, and that's not really great. It's just trying to get the details down.
I had seen Tim's previous footage from his trips to northern Iraq, and I'd seen the people that he'd met with the ministries there, and now I was there meeting these people. And though we just met, they felt like old friends.
He sent this bomb chemical.
It killed about, what, 5,000 or more?
1,000?
5,000?
100,000.
100,000?
100,000. One time he takes many people, 2-3 bus. He take to, you know, Ramadi. This Ramadi between Baghdad and Jordan. He take it and he take it.
Ramadi?
لا Ramadi. خؤرة صحراء.
He's put it in the
ground?
Yes, on
the bus.
Yes.
The whole bus with the people in it?
With the people, yes.
Oh.
Yes, yes.
And,
he buried
people's life.
He buried the bus. He buried them alive.
There and
covered it up.
Oh, like he dug a hole.
Yes.
And he drove the bus in, and then just covered it over.
After the first Gulf War, a no-fly zone had been imposed in northern Iraq to keep Saddam Hussein from coming north and killing the Kurdish people.
Although the Kurdish people were certainly targets of Saddam, they were not the only ones.
They were very hopeful and full of joy when the Americans came in, because perhaps we'll be able to live in peace. People telling her how to dress and how to go outside and what to do or what not to do because she's a Christian and have to be restricted. And people controlling her life.
He's the evil dictator. He's the one that killed my son. You know, they personalize it and they say it's Saddam.
Yeah, he deserves to die. Yeah, what can he do anymore? Yeah, he was the cause of all this.
Many different stories they have like that, because that I told you, he's devil.
Yeah.
You don't know, you know little thing about Saddam.
What did Saddam do with those weapons, what we call weapons of mass destruction, nerve gas or things to use to kill the people? Did he get rid of those weapons, or did he put them in Syria, or those bombs? Yeah. What did he do with them?
يعني الكيميائي مالته مش أعتقد وين يكون يعني.
Saddam
well,
is,
if America didn't know, we can know.
I don't know that anybody here really got into that debate and said that's why we should go in, because there's weapons of mass destruction. I think that was played to the West and was geared to a Western audience to say that's why we have to go in, because there's weapons of mass destruction.
Do you think maybe he buried them in the ground, or did he send them to Syria, or?
Maybe we are sure that Saddam he had
it. Yeah.
But where is it now? We didn't know. Maybe in Syria.
Yeah. No one knows.
Maybe in another country Arab country, Muslim country. Okay.
The Iraqis all along said you've got to go in because of Saddam. He's killing thousands. He's the weapon of mass destruction.
الله كان بده العراق يتغير والله أعطى ممكن القوة والقدرة للولايات المتحدة USA إنه يعني هي تخلص يعني الشعب العراقي يكون يعني في فريدم يعني في العراق يعني. هذا كان شيء عظيم يعني اللي صار فيها.
عبر الفيديو؟
إيه عبر الفيديو إيه. ككردي أول شيء ككردي أني أحيي حجي جورج بوش.
He's very happy about George Bush.
Kurdistan. Yeah, Kurdistan.
Kurdistan.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. President. We are Kurds from Iraq. We are very grateful for what you done for our country, removing Saddam Hussein. And really, we just want to say thank you very much. God bless you. I will translate.
أنا بالنيابة إلى عائلتي وشعبي في كردستان أني أشكر رئيس الولايات المتحدة والشعب الأمريكي أنه إجا وخلصنا من نظام صدام حسين. هسا إحنا أكثر حرية ونقدر أنه نحكي عن قوميتي، أقدر أحكي عن مسيحيتي بحرية وبدون خوف يعني.
Training these people in this print shop was not the same as it would be back home. These people had to be trained from scratch out of a group, a small handful of Christians who volunteered to work in that position.
The problem is trying to convince them that they need to make negatives and plates because they think that it's better to make positive plates. They don't have to make film, but we don't have any real way to set up and do that. Although we could try it.
I decided that we'd take the guys in the print shop on a short little field trip around to several other print shops in the city and see how they were doing things, see what type of equipment they had, and see how they were making their plates and the entire process so they get a better idea of what was supposed to happen in a print shop. We met some people in some of these other print shops that were very encouraging and very helpful, demonstrated how they did things in their print shop. Sunday morning, we got to visit one of the home churches. It was probably very much like the early church that described in the book of Acts that met in people's homes.
And the church isn't the only ministry in northern Iraq. We also got to visit a private school where the curriculum is Christian-based, and we met with the teachers, and then we were taken to another ministry that I was pretty fond of.
Well, we're in Hook. We just arrived from the taxi, and they picked us up and brought us over to the church, and we came upstairs here, and here's their little radio station. They only operate 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. I think if they had the right equipment, they could leave it running unmanned 24 hours if they had the right setup. And that would reach a lot more people.
I realized that it's extremely difficult for them to become a Christian because of the Islamic culture that is put on them. Despite that, there's a very strong curiosity to want to know more about the Bible, to want to know more about who Jesus is.
Hearing the call to prayer that morning, it dawned on me how delicate the Christian ministries are in northern Iraq, and how important it is that Tim gets this print shop operational before this trip ends.
As strong as my desire was to see this print shop productive, it paled in comparison to God's desire to see His word spread throughout Iraq and throughout the world.
This press had been sitting in this print shop in northern Iraq for 3 years and had never had a page roll off of it, never printed a page of anything, and everybody was determined to get it running.
They're getting it together. It's going to work. At least the press is running now, the folder's running. Everything is working, almost. From one day to the next.
As our time in the print shop ran out, the entire crew seemed to work faster and harder than they had our entire trip so far. They were dedicated to getting this press running.
Oh, they're just putting on the first plate. They're going to put another plate on the front. But they're putting tacking under it. They just want to make sure it's square. So they're doing a good job.
Our last full day in the print shop, everybody worked extra hard.
It looked like they were doing good. They got the front plate on.
Finally, it was time to ink up the rollers and make a few calibrations, and Tim showed them how to feed the first pages into the press.
Considering we just pulled the first 5 sheets or so, it's really running pretty decent. They, for the first time, realized that they didn't have the page sequence correct, but I'm not real shocked at that. But it's okay. It's a learning experience, so it's good.
Something else happened that day that was completely unexpected.
It is raining in Erbil, Kurdistan.
We had a wonderful day. The print shop was running good. The guys apparently had learned more than I gave them credit for. And they were able to actually put on the plates, run the press, get it centered in both directions, and feed the paper properly, everything. They were doing great. There's no problems. And even though I couldn't read it, it was in Kurdish, or I don't know if it's Kurdish or Arabic. I don't know what I'm looking at. I think it's Kurdish, but it was thrilling just to look at the sheet with all the pages and know that God's going to use that to speak to some people. It is now, see if you can zoom in on my watch here. It is now 5 o'clock with Arabic numerals, and we're leaving tomorrow morning. I think we'll come back by here and greet everybody, say goodbye, and have some chai, some tea, kind of give them a little pep talk, encourage them a little bit. Everyone has work to do. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of practice to learn to run everything better and better, have all the problems, no problems anymore, and we can operate.
Thank you very much to coming and
for being
yes, because you're coming from there here to Kurdistan and help us, and we never forget this help.
Oh, thank you so much.
Now that we've been back, we've talked to people by email and by phone, and have heard good reports that the print shop is up and rolling and things are being productive. They're putting out new materials for the Christian bookstores and for other Christian organizations in the area. But beyond the production of the machines, what it really amounts to is how is it changing people's lives. And that's what excites me, because I see that the printed word in the hands of people is potentially able to change people's lives. And it's exciting to know that the Word of God is having an impact on that part of the world.